Today, the award for most anticipated ChillPoint goes to next week. But this is ChillPoint. We were so close.
Yeah, just about.
Right there.
I hope we're all on next week's ChillPoint then.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week.
Right.
I'm in intense anticipation for next week. Whereas this ChillPoint, I know what's going to happen already. Well, I know the general gist of what's going to happen already.
Yeah. I'd have thought this ChillPoint would have surprised more people, actually. But, because this is the one that's happening right away, not the one that we know that it's coming
maybe
next
if we
week.
hadn't pre-announced all the things we were going to talk about.
That might be the problem. Yeah.
But most anticipated is a tricky thing though, right? It's like maybe, and you and Graham talked about it at after the show last time, where it's like there's the difference between most like best,
Yeah.
or the most people who want to see something is slightly different than most anticipated.
Yeah. And how do you measure that exactly? And it's like, well, you talk to IGN and GamesBomb and
the people who've been paying attention
Gamer Explosion
the most, I guess, which is going to be the journalists, really.
Game
Bonfire.
Bonfire. Thank you.
They were never going to ask us, but at the same time, we were never going to watch all of E3. So, it's fair.
Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to ChillPoint, the show where we talk about video game news for the last week and also the CheckPoint from yesterday. If you haven't watched it already, you can check it up on YouTube, youtube.com/loadingreadyrun. Check out the latest episode. And we talked about all sorts of stuff. And in particular, I do like... the intro for this episode is the recurring thing that we talked about before, is that these big conventions, E3 and Gamescom and these different big events sometimes are not actually that great for CheckPoint, even if they're good for video game news.
Yeah.
Usually we can glean something, but it's weird. Yeah, you get kind of this huge deluge of announcements of games, but that's not that interesting as a thing to make fun of,
but generally
the games are
at
fun.
least the events themselves sometimes contain things that give you something to make fun of.
That's true. The sort of pageantry around it is often a good source of entertainment.
Well, and if this had been a more normal E3, where people were at an event together, once the announcements calm down, generally you get that week of, we managed to get an interview, and maybe something interesting happened during that, or other stuff. And I feel like there's maybe a little less of that this year, especially given how it sounds like E3 had their stuff set up for booths.
Yeah.
That apparently did not work very well. I didn't even bother to look at it, but I read a couple of articles about how because E3 had this virtual booth thing that they were trying to push, but apparently nobody actually did it really.
It was a mess.
The companies they sort of most of the things that people set up in their virtual booths were just old trailers or whatever, and they didn't even bother to update it as they announced new stuff during the event.
It's an extra thing that they have to do then, which I don't think they really want to. And then there were things like, oh, if you put in a business card to say I want to speak to you, the only pronouns that ever showed up were he, him. Regardless of anything, it didn't give you a place to put your pronouns.
Holy
at all.
Shit!
And I'm just well, that's real weird.
Wow.
I start to think more and more that the from the convention perspective or the conference perspective, I think PAX really has the captured idea of no one gets to announce or display anything new at this event. Your booth is your booth. If you have things to announce, you better announce them before or announce them after. You're not going to start doing a whole bunch of like, if you have a new demo, you can bring that if you want. If you have new trailers and stuff, by all means, it's good to show those things. But
I mean, there are announcements at PAX, but it is like it's the problem though is that you've got the the consumer show versus the sort of industry show. And it turns out that the most of the stuff that you want to do at an industry show can be done fairly well remotely. Yeah. Like most of the stuff at a consumer show, or a lot of the stuff at a consumer show, hanging out with people with similar interests, playing demos, getting hands-on with stuff. That kind of stuff, does you do need to have the sort of physical location and stuff, but it turns out that a lot of the stuff, and then also like I love the way that E3 has basically become less of a show and more of just kind of a locus for other shows. It's like nobody, like there's a ton of everything is called, it's like these are all like E3 announcements. Hardly anything was announced at E3. People or at sort of E3, an official E3 thing, but all of the game companies made big announcements of their own using their own systems completely independently on the week of E3. So
except for Sony.
Right, except for Sony.
For but it was some just reason, like I was really surprised. I really thought Sony would have done a state of play over this last week, and they didn't, and that's weird to me.
I have a question. Did we actually introduce the show yet?
Kind of.
Okay, good. I completely forgot. I was like, did we do it or not?
You just
this is
we're on track remember, but yeah.
I didn't formally say that this is the first story, but this is basically the first. Yeah. We're getting into the first story that we talked about on CheckPoint now.
But you make an interesting point too, because obviously the interesting thing about E3 week, which is like Shark Week, I guess. But the interesting thing about E3 week is that Jeff Keighley of the Game Awards ran his own headlining event called Summer Games Fest, where it's happening contra E3 versus E3. Well, maybe contra is, but whatever.
Just before E3.
And then had a bunch of companies that were like, yes, we're going to be making announcements during this time, and we're completely okay with Jeff Keighley writing that information to say that it's happening at Summer Games Fest. The marketing flacks are just like, I have to make some shit for E3, so if it's going to be ready a week early, I guess that's fine. And it does make me wonder, I'm like, is that a vision of the emerging future where other groups decide to start doing their own E3 around E3 and making like competing shows to try to gain people to their own side of doing things? I love the idea of because it'll still end up being E3 week. Like no one is ever going to not think of it as E3 week.
It will still be E3 week. I can't see a bunch of people trying to be like, let's all try and do a big event thing where we get a bunch of publishers together. At most, what you're going to get, which is what you're already kind of getting, is things like the Wholesome Game Direct, where they're like, okay, we'll do one panel with a thing. But that's not an event that's supposed to span, like a long time. Or you'll get like Nintendo's just going to put out their directs when they do. Sony's just going to put out their state of plays when they do. They're not going to be interested in being like, Sony could do, if they wanted to, hey, we have a bunch of stuff that is over a variety of publishers, and so we're going to make sure that they all do their own little thing within our wheelhouse. But they're not going to do that. They're just going to do one thing.
Like, to be honest, I don't know if Games Fest, like if I'm E3, I don't know if it's actually that bad. I don't know if Game Fest is actually like, I see it like in Victoria, there's a street near me where that's just like there's like 7 or 8 antique shops all right next to each other, and
Right.
they're like, and there's like a little sign that says like Antiques Row,
Yeah.
and because they're so people go, if you want to get antiques, you can go there and go to all of the shops. So theoretically, they're competing with each other, but they're also creating a sort of greater than the sum of their parts kind of thing. And like I think that's like by putting Games Fest, Summer Games Fest where it is, it just sort of add it. Sure, he's announcing things, but it's also sort of adding to this sort of E3 week kind of thing. Like in my mind, Summer Game Fest is still E3, which is probably annoying for Jeff Keighley, but
Probably.
whatever. That's how
Well,
it
his
goes.
name is incredibly long.
But I mean, he has the Game Awards, and I have no feeling that I do not feel that the E3 awards will be supplanting the Game Awards anytime soon.
I don't think they were intending to.
Until some other organization decides to start their own Golden Globes of the Game Awards.
So the Game Awards. The Game Awards is at a different time now, though, right?
It's in December.
Right. I guess that makes like it's actually for the year.
Because the Game Awards is meant to be the games that year. Up to, I think, like the end of November. If your game comes out in December, I think it technically goes into the next year batch.
Yeah, that tends to happen. Yeah.
But
Now
yeah,
the idea of of E3 awards, which is what we were mostly focusing on, the idea of
most anticipated.
Yeah, and that's a complicated idea.
It's especially the like not most anticipated is already like kind of a bullshit award.
Yeah.
But the additional level of bullshit of dividing it into categories by publisher, some of whom only announced one game.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that, but at the same time, when I look at the Game Awards and they're like, oh, best game in this category, and it's always like a game that you've definitely heard of, where you're like, part of this is a popularity contest because people have to have played the game to know, whereas at least most anticipated, is a popularity contest from the get-go.
Yeah.
But it's, dividing it, categorizing it by publisher instead of by genre, like, it's not most anticipated, platform.
Action adventure, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want most anticipated Metroidvania, and Metroid doesn't win it.
Right.
I figured most anticipated as a game, sure, overall, or I'm not even bothered too much by the idea of maybe per platform.
Yeah.
Right.
Or something like that. But I kind of expect, I don't know, I thought there'd be some other awards other than just most anticipated,
and then
best show, and then like most anticipated game overall. I thought there'd be like maybe 2 other categories of something.
But it is brilliant in its own way that the ESA said, what can we do to award awards so that everybody gets their own participation trophy?
Right. They are...
So that no publisher who is actually who we are representing walks out of here feeling like they got snubbed at the E3 awards. It's a very careful way to do it. But what it also does, I think, is it's great for like if you're a Nintendo fan and Nintendo doesn't get picked for any of the awards, and then you end up going online and railing about the fact that there must be collusion and corruption at the E3 because Nintendo games didn't get picked for most anticipated whatever, or because that could be any platform owner, right? That could be Sony or that could be Microsoft or whatever. It's like you get to avoid all that. Everybody who sees this is like, oh, what was the most anticipated Nintendo game? Breath of the Wild 2. It's like, yeah, that's a Nintendo game.
I don't even
you answer your own question. Ultimately, it's like, hey, look at what won. That's makes sense.
I was thinking, like, I don't even know what collusion would mean in the context of judging a most anticipated award. Like, I didn't even know. Like, I don't think that even makes sense in this context. It's like, of course they're colluding. They're supposed to be.
Yeah,
that's what the award is measuring. But it's and also you end up with, of course, you have like as we talked about, the Intellivision award for Asteroids, and I haven't seen. I didn't see anything in the YouTube comments, but
Uh-huh.
and think feel. I mean, maybe people will correct me, but as far as I know, there is not a game called Asteroids coming out for this new Intellivision system.
Uh-huh.
The game is called Astro Smash. And it is not.
And
It's not even like an Asteroids clone. Like it's a different kind of game. You're still shooting asteroids, but you're like moving along the bottom.
Which is very kind of like Space Invaders Missile Command kind of
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was even a game called Asteroids on the original Intellivision. It was also called Astro Smash. Like that's a remake of a game for the Intellivision, which all the things on the new system are.
I was gonna say because I'm pretty sure Asteroids might actually be an Atari exclusive. Like it might have been one of those things that Atari made themselves. Yeah.
So
Oh, it's good.
So it's a bad sign when the most anticipated game that you're producing, people don't know the name of.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Not only do consumers not know the name of, the E3 doesn't know the name of because they put it incorrectly.
Oh, and they haven't even fixed it yet.
As
They're
far
probably
as
not
I know,
going to.
it hasn't been fixed.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody else. I also haven't seen anybody else calling it out, which is why I was thinking, like, is there actually a game called Asteroids? Not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
Although I will say, IGN, if you look at their page, they, instead of Asteroids, they're the most anticipated Intellivision game is Dolphin Quest.
Ah.
Okay.
Which, to be honest, apparently it's like an original. It's actually an original game coming out for this the Intellivision
Amico.
made by the Echo the Dolphin team. And I'm like, that's actually that's probably the most that actually sounds interesting. I anticipate that game more so than Astro Smash anyway, or Asteroid.
I mean, and you think people should because it's like, oh, what does this mean? Because it's the first thing that people say, right? They're like, oh, geez, that we remember Echo the Dolphin. There's lots of people who really love Echo the Dolphin, and there's not a lot of people out there who are like, God, you know what I could really use more of in my life is Astro Smash. And like, people aren't doing that.
I mean, it's fun to say,
but who the hell voted out of all of those news flacks who were like, oh, you know what I want to play is that Intellivision Asteroids game? Like, all right, well, let's just write that shit down. Great, write it in, perfect, awesome.
I mean, I just assumed that the easiest way to do this is to look at whatever the chat is doing during that time of E3 and doing a word search and being like, okay, this game name came up the most, so
like maybe when they were showing the trailers, like they showed there's like a pack of trailers for all the Intellivision games, and maybe because they showed Astro Smash as part of that, people were like, hey, I see asteroids.
Yeah.
Like that they were just describing what they're seeing on the screen, not the game.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just asteroids with a question mark?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guessing that goes on when you watch a presentation.
Yeah.
And if you are participating in not necessarily the chat, but a chat of other people in which you're watching with,
right,
there is that moment where a bunch of people start going, wait, does this look like such and such thing? Have I figured it out before they told me what the name of the game is?
Right. Interesting. Actually, this is a tangent, but I thought it was interesting when Paul, you and I talked about it. Was the idea of Dolphin Quest being made by the Echo the Dolphin team really got me because I looked. There's a new game, Monster World 4, got a remake. I guess I just need to say that. And when I was looking at the trailer for it, I was excited initially because I'm like, oh, it's another Monster World game. So it's another like Metroidvania set in the Wonder Boy in Monsterland, Wonder Boy in Monster World, Monster Boy in the Animal Kingdom, like whatever. And I was like all excited for this game. And because I'm like, oh, more of that. I like playing those things. Those are great. And I looked at the trailer and I was like, it's not what I expected, and it wasn't what I really wanted. And part of their marketing is like the original West One team came back, or Westone, or whatever the name of the group is back to like work on improving this to put it out into the world again, right? They're the ones in charge of the remake because we got a whole bunch of people back from that, and I'm like, but the game doesn't look any more exciting or fun or whimsical or whatever, it doesn't always mean when somebody returns from the original team to make a thing that the game's going to end up as good or better as the ones from that you played originally.
Yeah, and I think there is an aspect of, especially with the older games, there's thing with like there it's kind of died down now, but there for a couple of years ago there was like a big trend of like rebooting TV shows, right? You know, there's like Fuller House, and I forget what all the other ones were,
But there's a few of them, yeah.
they were talking about bringing back different things and stuff, and people like everyone loved this show, and it was really popular when it was on TV, and so we're going to bring it back on
He-Man.
Netflix. Yeah,
Still happening. It's still happening.
We're going to bring it up back on Netflix, or wherever.
Yeah.
And I think that in some ways that I think a fundamental misunderstanding of how, at least I know when I was a kid, how I watched TV, which was come home from school, turn on TV, and there's like 3 things that might look interesting to watch. Find one and watch it. Like, it wasn't that I really loved Full House. It was that it was fine. Like, I don't... And I feel like that there might be some of that for some of these older games too, where it's like, we got the team back who made this game that was like super popular. And it was like, but maybe that game was super popular because there wasn't a lot of competition at the time, and people would like buy, you know, you get the one game from your parents for Christmas and you play the heck out of that game. Mm-hmm. And so, but in a world where there are so many games out there, maybe it's not actually, maybe the whatever the original developers, the spark of the original developers, maybe it's not actually that impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, it might not be, but they're gonna go on the idea that sure, people aren't playing those games maybe right now in the same amount that people were in the day, even if they were only playing them because it's the game you got. But that nostalgia of, man, I remember playing these older games, and that would be fun to play again, is probably enough to at least drive what they want for minimum amount of sales.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's probably all we need to talk about for the E3 awards. Oh yeah, well, except for the whole Forza thing. That apparently Forza very popular, very very anticipated. There was some. I saw some grumbling in the YouTube comments of people being like, "Hey, Forza is great. We love Forza."
I mean,
sure.
I knew it was popular in the sense of like it's a franchise. A lot of people play it. It's a racing game that people want to play.
Yeah.
But throughout like all of E3, it's just not the title I thought would be the most anticipated as a game.
I think I'm going to make a controversial point that if somebody had announced Madden 2021, that would have been the most anticipated game of E3. If somebody had announced FIFA 2021 or 2022 or whatever, that would have been the most... And because the relative audiences of the things, if that's what's actually... If that's the secret sauce, if that's the science they're coming down with to say this is the thing that's coming out, then that would have been the most anticipated thing. And so therefore, I don't think then that is the science. I don't think that is the secret sauce they used to determine whatever it is. The secret sauce was, here are these 7 or 8 company video game journalist entities that get to have a say in what this is. They're the ones who get to write the thing on the whatever. And we have no idea how they determined what their race was, or who's going to win their race. And then all that stuff went in to a box, and then E3 pulled the stuff out of the box to say, here's what got added up.
I agree on the idea that Horizon maybe has a broader appeal to say something like Far Cry or whatever other gaming companies make. But I don't know that that's a yearly franchise, and I still think it would have beaten out a yearly franchise.
See, and I'm just like, if you're going on audience reaction to some stuff, it always seems that Madden sells millions upon millions, and FIFA sells millions upon millions, and it's like, if that's what makes something the most anticipated game, because that's the most people who are anticipating putting money down to buy this game.
But it should probably be the most anticipated of the people who are even watching E3 in the first place,
I agree.
not everybody. When you get too wide in your category, not all of those people are going to be watching an event like E3.
Exactly.
So okay, I had a revelation
Mm.
about sports franchise games last night. I was thinking about Forza, and then about, I mean, that's less of a sports franchise thing, and that it's not like it came out every year, but these sort of iterative games. And I was realizing that it's like, because they're dealing with the real world in a sense, right? So say Madden, all the arenas that you play in are the real ones, so they're the same each time, right? And I mean, maybe they've started to do a little bit, but story obviously hasn't never been a huge part of the sports game thing.
Yeah.
So if you have a game that's got a very similar similar presentation and style as the previous iteration of it, the same characters mostly, but better graphics and tweaked gameplay. I think sports games, franchise sports games, are just remakes.
Yeah.
They're just they're like when you do whatever, the new DuckTales game.
Yep.
That's we brought back all your favorites, but we've redone the graphics in HD.
Yeah.
That's basically it's the next iteration of the franchise of Madden. It's we brought all the characters back that you like. It's the same game.
Yeah.
But the graphics are better. We've added a few we've added some quality of life improvements, so just to make things better.
Also, we brought back the original Madden 2019 team to make Madden 2020.
All right. I'm not going to disagree with Paul, because I think he's definitely made a good point here. But what this means is now what I want out of CheckPoint, not ChillPoint, but out of CheckPoint, is that if you guys end up writing a story about, I don't know, Madden 2022, you have to call it the remake of the first Madden game.
Quite frankly, I think I'm just going to hold on to this idea of a remake, and we're going to use it as the intro for the next CheckPoint, perhaps. Just be like, we assembled the original CheckPoint team from last week to bring you CheckPoint this week.
All that being said, the trailer for Forza Horizon 5 does legitimately look amazing.
Nice.
And some of the effect, I saw this trailer I saw this thing that was summary of E3, and they were going through all this in this game you have a grappling hook you can attach and swing on things. In this game, they've added a grappling hook where you can attach and swing on things. In Halo, they've added this that you can attach and swing on things. And then it was and then in Battlefield, they've added dynamic sandstorm weather effects. And in Forza, they've added dynamic sandstorm weather effects, which is, for some reason, that's a new thing that a lot of games are added. But it looks really, really cool in the game.
I was kind of hoping you were going to say that they were going to add a grappling hook to Forza Horizon so you can swing over canyons.
I mean, to see that happen.
And I'm like, that's the kind of shit that Devolver Digital would do with their things. They'd be like, well, every other game that we have has a grappling hook.
It's can
you get the Forza guys to just gin up something so they can show this and be like, no, we're not really doing that. But yeah.
It's like a San Francisco Rush thing. I mean, Forza is the more arcadey version of the Forza line. Horizon is the more arcadey version in the Forza line. So, maybe there's some options there.
Yeah. People be like, that shit looks like Rocket League all of a sudden. What the hell?
Paul, what game out of E3 do you think is your most anticipated?
Yeah, we never asked you at the end. I'm sorry. Yeah. What is your most
I
anticipated?
mean, I'm mostly just curious. This is like the one time a week I really get to talk to Paul.
Yeah, because then we have to get yours as well.
Most
have to think about it.
anticipated. I'm thinking about because like the Summer Games Fest was like the main thing that I watched a lot of because we were
Yeah,
doing
I mean,
the-
I'd
doing the
include
stream of
their
it.
stuff into E3
Sure.
at this point, really.
The what was it called? The one with the little forest animal running around tagging things with a sword.
Tunic?
Is it Tunic?
That's specifically a fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was it. Was there?
Well, you're in good company, Paul.
Yeah, as I was saying in the thing, there's this feeling that I always get, especially when watching. I mean, it wasn't as bad in the Summer Games Fest, but like watching something like the PC Game Show, where you just see first person shooter after first person shooter after first person after or MMOs and they're all like the same kind of grim gray kind of people shooting with guns or either people shooting like in like historical thing and it's all kind of grim and gray, or it's like futuristic but it's still kind of grim and gray, and people are shooting with stuff, and then these every once in a while this like a game comes into the like mix that's it's like, oh, nice, and it's like cute little cartoon characters, and it's green, and it's and I feel almost like a physical like, oh, this is nice,
Yes.
which and so like maybe it's just in the context that I saw it in, but it seemed really neat.
I mean, that game has like you walk through the grass, or like if you walk through little trees, the trees like bend out of the way and stuff. Like there's a lot of really cool animation things with that.
Something that I've been thinking about also after seeing trailers and stuff. And this isn't a game that I currently think, but something that I think the next generation, the next step in terms of quality of graphics, because obviously games are ridiculously beautiful these days.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I feel is lacking is collision detection. Like, I want to see a game with perfect collision detection. Like, you walk through even a first-person game or a third-person game, you're walking through, the grass, and the grass moves out of your way. You're fighting, like something like Monster Hunter, where you're fighting this, like, giant monster. Like, Monster Hunter, the monster you're fighting is clipping through the ground and all this stuff all the time. When you attack it, your weapon clips through the monster. And when it attacks you, it swipes and just goes through your body and you take damage. And get knocked away and stuff, right? Like, that's just sort of the accepted way that games work.
Yeah.
But, yeah, why it has to be, I think that's the next thing to strive for, is it's ridiculous. It would be, it's massively expensive in terms of processing power and stuff. But what else are we going to use all this processing power on?
Well,
I mean, I know it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard, but there's a lot of graphics things that people are making that are really hard that can be done. I just think it's something to strive for.
I definitely do want to have a conversation about what can we use all of this massive amounts of graphics power for when we get to our next story, but we haven't heard Heather's most anticipated.
I mean, really, it is going to be Breath of the Wild 2, because most of the stuff that my anticipation always shoves over to Nintendo's side of things, because they typically have a lot more games that I like overall. And when it comes to like a lot of the indie stuff that I am anticipating, I've been anticipating those games for like 5 years. So while I'll be ecstatic when they finally come out, I over anticipated on those already.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of holding out hope for Breath of the Wild 2 being a holiday release. It's fine that it's gone into 2022, but everything that they showed at the Nintendo Direct was stuff that's either coming out in the next month or two. So they have previously talked about it.
Right.
So that, or it was shown off in another showcase like Mario and Rabbids, which I'm sure will be fantastic, even if I'm mad at Ubisoft. And their their big one, which I do agree with Beej, Metroid Dread is like the big drop of that thing. But I've not played a Metroid game.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I like Samus. Samus looks cool. I will probably end up playing a Metroid game at some point in my life one day. But I'm a big Zelda fan, and so I'm excited for trying out Skyward Sword for the first time and getting that Game and Watch, even though I don't really need it. And the big like dropping in the sky thing of Breath of the Wild 2 looks really cool to me.
You make it sound like a Mario Sonic thing. Like if you're a Zelda fan, you can't be a Metroid. Like they're like in competition. They're on the same system. You can have both.
Yeah.
I've never played a Metroid game, so it's the whole like Metroidvanias. I've played a few Metroidvanias.
Yes.
And
have you played any Castlevania games?
Does Bloodstained count?
No.
Okay.
It's not it is a Metroidvania, and it is made by the guy who made a lot of the Metroidvania games,
but it
is
count
not Castlevania. Okay.
So I've neither played a Metroid or a Castlevania game, but I have played the Metroidvania style of games, and
you're probably not alone in that.
When people use the term Metroidvania, I'm like, oh man, this game's great. It's a good Metroidvania. I'm like, cool. You're gonna have to sell me on some other aspects because I played some Metroidvanias I don't like a lot. Mm-hmm. And I've played ones I like. That's not a selling feature for me. And so Metroid's like, space and things that Heather doesn't generally gel towards, because Heather prefers fantasy and running around in really bright areas, and Metroid's got a little bit of brightness to it from what I've seen, but...
Yeah. I can see, fantasy and running around in bright areas. Metroid, not fantasy. Castlevania, not bright.
No.
Yeah, it's just not the thing that, like, when I see it, I'm like, oh shit, yes, I want to play that. Although, when they did show off Metroid Dread, I was like, okay, that looks cool. Also, I'm still reeling over the idea that they actually did use the Dread subtitle that I didn't think was actually going to happen as a subtitle.
I do love the... I guess we should probably, at this point, then we could move on to...
into Metroid Dread story.
Yeah. Metroid Dread was a huge announcement it was unexpected, which it's so weird because the warm up to it in the direct was, so we heard it, we want to talk a little bit about Metroid, and Metroid Prime 4 is still under development. We are still working on it. Like, They literally said that, and then they said, but we have some other Metroid news that we think you'll enjoy. I'm like, they basically said, please temper your goddamn expectations, but we do have a new Metroid related thing for you. And I was like, fuck, we're going to get another Federation Force, aren't we? That's what's happening.
He did. I was sitting beside him when he was watching it later, and it was...
That was the only thing I thought when they said that. I was like, oh, god damn it, we're getting another Federation Force game.
It'll do the Blizzard thing or whatever, or like, it's like, we're coming up with a mobile game. It's an endless runner with Samus running along and jumping,
being chased by Metroids or something. And I was like, at this point I would have taken the goddamn Metroid Space Dance Challenge thing that Penny Arcade came up with like decades ago. I'm like, I would have taken that and been like, sure, that's what's happening. I thought all of that was more likely than we're making a new 2D Metroid game in the series. Probably the last 2D Metroid game in this story arc.
It's a continuation from the story arc of Fusion. And it moves, from what I understand, it moves story along, and it's also the thing that finishes the arc.
Yeah. So it's Metroid 1, Metroid 2, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and then this one.
Correct.
Yeah. Is that the
Metroid Zero Mission is a GBA remake of the original Metroid 1 with some like embellishments, is my understanding. I've never played it, but I do want to.
And the 3DS one that they brought out last time,
Metroid Samus Returns, is a remake of Metroid 2 Return of Samus.
Right, okay.
Which is a fun... All that was very fun to say. Now, there's a few... My sticking point for Metroid Dread was, if you watch the development history video, which is very interesting, I do recommend going to YouTube and finding this. It's about six and a half minutes. Yoshio Sakamoto, who's the producer, was talking about, we were trying to make this for the last 15 years. And the technology wasn't there at the time. And then we tried again, and it still was not up to what we thought we needed for it to do. And this is a common thing that developers say when they're talking about, there's a game we've been wanting to make for a long time, and the technology wasn't there, and they never get into more about why.
Yeah, because generally it's we tried to do a thing, the tech didn't work out for us, so we kind of because we'd rather not put out another thing until we can make it work the way we want it to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said this to filmmaking. I can't fathom how the technology wasn't there to make a 2D Metroid game. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. So there has to be something about Dread, the specific thing they're doing in it, that was like they couldn't do it in 2D wherever it was they were positioning it. And I think it largely has to do with where they were positioning it. Because Metroid, so if we go over it, right? It's like Metroid on the NES, Metroid 2 Return to Samus on the Game Boy, Super Metroid on the Super NES, Metroid Fusion. Well, then we have Metroid Zero Mission on the GBA, and which is, take what was on the NES and put it onto that. Then they have Metroid Fusion on the GBA, and if they were and 19 years later we have Dread, but they said 15 years of development, which means that there was several years after Fusion where they were like, okay, it's time for us to make a new Metroid, right? Let's actually start talking about the thing that we want to do. And to me, that means you were probably at the DS stage at that point, and they were looking at the Wii and the DS, and they're like, well, what are we going to do with this whole Metroid thing? It's like, well, 3D games go on the Wii, 2D games go on the DS. It might have just been as simple as that. It might have just been a very simple idea of, you want to make a new 2D Metroid? Well, it has to go on the DS because that's where we're putting all of our 2D games.
Right.
And then they were like, well, we can't really do that. We need the additional firepower. We need to put it on the Wii. It's like, no. That's where Metroid Prime goes. Metroid Prime is going on the Wii.
Yeah, like I guess it's just it's not the technology didn't exist. It's, the specific Nintendo console didn't want to do what they wanted to do it on. And I want to be,
and I need to be clear that is my speculation as somebody who doesn't really know anything about what's happening, but I think it tracks, because where was the next place they released a 2D Metroid game? On the 3DS. And Mercury Stream was who is working on Metroid Dread with Nintendo for that. Mercury Stream was the company that remade Samus Returns. And so it's like, I wonder if that's just kind of, they got locked into this dogma of these games belong on these platforms. And maybe that is what happened.
There are certain franchises that when you look at, especially in Nintendo, where there's this... I feel like it's a conception of the idea of a specific game of a specific style. We can only sell at a certain price range, and so we'll put that on the DS because it's a cheaper price range than the Wii.
Right.
For a video game, and then once we hit Switch, that does that happen anymore? And
the convergence means
since the convergence happened, there's been I know like some low level conversations about the idea of, well, does this mean we can have this kind of game on the Switch in a physical release even, or as a full-fledged $60 US price game, because generally that game would have been this cheaper price point, and will the people who want to buy it, will enough of them still want to buy it at this price point? That's why you heard things about WarioWare having that thing sent out, like, would you be willing to pay $60 US for a WarioWare game,
right,
and whatnot? And
right, because then
I don't think you're wrong about that.
Yeah, what are you targeting in terms of the kind of a game it's going to be?
Yeah, and it might just be that they were like, the convergence of the platform into the Switch was something where they were able to be like, okay, we now have a portable console, or we have the only console that this is going to be developed for. It's now time for us. We want to make a Metroid game again. Hey, Mercury Stream did just make Samus Returns, and they really love Metroid games. They really have, and not only do they love it, they have a very good, because in the video the dude also mentions, he's like, Mercury Stream really has a good idea of what makes a Metroid game tick. And I'm like, if that's also your criteria of they know what makes a good Metroid game, and now we have a platform that can do what I'm assuming Emmy was supposed to be the embodiment of, is this 3D tracking thing that is like, it's not just the like, oh, it's not just like Metal Gear Solid, oh, I noticed you and I'm just going to come straight for you kind of thing. It's like, if Emmy's supposed to be smart enough to figure stuff out, and that's part of the game. But I don't know, we've been doing that 3D pathing thing for a long time, and they've kind of fixed it since Daikatana. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
we've...
I don't. They did show off gameplay during the Treehouse portion, which I haven't had a chance to watch any of the Treehouse related stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe they go through like some stuff there.
I've specifically not wanting to watch any more stuff to do with Metroid Dread, because I do want to be surprised by all the stuff that's in the game.
Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that as has been stated, this Metroid Fusion came out 19 years ago.
Yeah.
And then they essentially, probably to even some people, dropped doing 2D Metroids altogether and went for 3D. And so some people have been, instead of differentiating and saying Metroid Prime 4, will often say Metroid 4 to shorthand it. And I wouldn't doubt that there's been a series of some people. Metroid has a dedicated fan base, but not necessarily a giant fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really willing to bet that there were a bunch of people who were like, wait, we're not getting Metroid 4, but you're giving us Metroid 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing showed the 5 on the
right. People are like,
whatever,
wait,
and
what?
it's like Prime and Metroid are separate.
Yeah, that it's been so long since the last Metroid Prime, or the last 2D Metroid game, that people don't quite actually realize the lineage.
Yeah, I think timeline wise they're still technically connected.
Which?
Prime and the 2D series, like storyline wise, that there's kind of a
theoretically it's still
of
the
like
same person, but
of stuff, but it's like in terms of like
Samus gets around.
Kind of series
She's
of
had a busy
franchise,
life.
they're split.
Yeah. And I mean, people in chat are saying that Prime takes place between Metroid and Metroid 2 Return of Samus. But I don't know if that means that Prime 2 Echoes, and Prime 3 Corruption, if they all happen, if that whole episode happens between there. We do know, we as far as we can tell, Metroid Other M is like an AU. It's like fucking AO3 fanfiction.
That's we've all decided anyway.
Everyone has decided that that does not belong to what's going on. What I'm looking forward to in Metroid 5 is no more fucking radio chatter between you and some dude who's giving you directions on what to do. It's like, I don't want to have any of that. I want Samus to make her own decisions, do her own shit. She's doing, and I'm probably, from the way it sounds, it's like she's on a planet that she has no idea about, which is a thing that she does. But it's like SR388 and there's the other world that she travels to. Those were like the two worlds that we talked about always in Metroid. It's never been like about, well, she goes to a completely new world and does something else. So, and Zeebs, that's what it is. It's like always been like those two worlds for some reason. So,
yeah, I feel like I need a 10 to 15 minute long YouTube video explaining the Metroid timeline.
I mean, you'll probably get one before October, I assume.
I mean, I'm assuming they already exist, but
it's got to be at least for every streamer out there who's about to like go and play every single Metroid game, or at least the 2D ones.
Yeah,
that's got to be at least a lot shorter of a playthrough than going through all those Kingdom Hearts games every time a new Kingdom Hearts lands.
And I need to, and also I've never played Other M. I am actually eager to play it because I do like Metroid games, and if it is executed well enough play wise, I think I'll probably enjoy it. So we'll see what happens there. I also do want to say that I'm very happy that Samus has finally got herself a girlfriend, even if the girlfriend's a little too obsessive. But hey, more power to her. You can have all the kind of relationships you want if that's what you're into. Little yandere though.
Congratulations on an extremely unhealthy relationship.
Yeah,
it is not actually a relationship. It's just somebody trying to kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, probably. That seems to be the thing we were left with.
But
I am
now-
more surprised that I haven't seen any fan art. The day after, I'm like, we should have been seeing fan art all over the place. People should have been shipping the hell out of this. And I searched, and I couldn't find anything.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, I would have thought people would have been shipping this because look at how toxic it is. But whatever.
Wow.
There's one thing I can rely upon the internet
Sorry,
for.
it's just-
It's making
it's just-
bad decisions when it
It's
comes to
just-
fan art.
It's just like, well, this relationship is obviously toxic, so there should have been a lot of fan art about it.
Yeah.
Final
call
Fantasy, new Final Fantasy, which, yes, the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, the mind boggles as to what Final Fantasy Origin could mean. Like, it makes no sense. I haven't played every Final Fantasy game, but I've played a lot of Final Fantasy, and the concept just of Final Fantasy Origins just doesn't make any sense in the context of the franchise.
I
Okay.
think it's supposed to be a prequel to the first game, not necessarily an origin story for the entire series as a whole.
But the origin story, there's no series. Like, it's just there's a bunch of games that have similar mechanics. Like, they're not connected together. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it's actually meant to be like the whole franchise, because I'm sure we got a mobile game that's for that or something somewhere, given the way Final Fantasy seems to work.
Right.
And I don't know, I know so little about Final Fantasy, so you go fact check that all you want, because anything I'm saying is probably false. But as far as I've understood from comments and things I've seen, this is more of a prequel to the first game as opposed to the entire franchise being connected in some sort of weird timeline. Although I wouldn't mind seeing a timeline theory for Final Fantasy, given how disconnected it really does seem to be.
And then in 10,000 years, it was Final Fantasy II was next.
Yeah. Also, I mean, the world, I guess, almost ended or did end on multiple occasions, which has got to be a huge problem.
Yeah. I mean, my thing with this was the whole, I want to make a game about an angry man, and I'm like, I guess you needed to evolve from brooding teenager? What? Okay.
I mean, ironically, that is not actually a very common thing that happens in the Final Fantasy games. Like, Final Fantasy, it's more common that it's like, the little, either, a teenager, who's had, comes into some sort of magical powers and has the fate of the world thrust upon them, as opposed to angry guy trying to get revenge.
Yeah.
That's much more villain role
it's
in
funny,
Final Fantasy series.
It's funny in the larger, I mean, we could talk about the larger context of it, and we might take a while here, but it's like, when you think about what are motivators for great stories, we obviously make fun of the fact that it's like, oh wow, an angry man who's at the center of this entire thing. It's like, sure, but when you think about emotions that drive a story, it's generally not that it's like, I'm very happy in this situation, time to go have an adventure, right? Like, usually it's because there has to be an element that's like, you need to go do a thing. Like, even The Hobbit was like, Bilbo's happy at home, he's smoking his pipe, he doesn't want to go anywhere and do anything, and Gandalf shows up, he's like, maybe you could go on a...
Right?
What? I need you to go do a thing for me. And he's like, I don't know why I need to go do this thing for you, but I guess I'll do it. That's like a rare instance of a guy who's completely happy doing what he's doing, but a buddy asks him to go do a thing. He's like, okay, I guess I'll go do it.
I mean, that's still very within the reluctant hero trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's, the hero's journey kind of thing, but
there wasn't nothing about Bilbo that wanted him to go do it. It was definitely the external influence of somebody saying, you need to go do this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And also being overrun by dwarves.
Yeah. Whereas Final Fantasy Origin is, I want to kill chaos, I must kill chaos. Who wants to kill
I-
Chaos?
I will kill
Presumably
Chaos.
something. I mean, presumably Chaos knows what it did.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying. Maybe Chaos did something to him.
So if it's an angry thing, it's potentially a
Punch
revenge
Chaos.
plot, or I mean, generally when people are going off as a motivator for I'm angry and so I have to go and kill a thing, that's generally a revenge plot
Yeah.
of some kind.
That's
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing, it's it's changed from story to story, but often Final Fantasy games, have multiple sort of interconnected stories going on, right? Like a lot of Final Fantasy games don't have like a main character, or you could argue back and forth about who is technically the main character of the story. Like sometimes it is actually that sort of obscure. Some of them aren't, not so much. Some of them, Final Fantasy X or whatever, you're explicitly going with this person to do this thing. But some of the other ones, everyone sort of has their own kind of storyline that all kind of are going in the same general direction, but are not necessarily like, sure, we all want to save the world, but that's not actually our motivation in a lot of cases, which is kind of interesting. So who knows if this guy is going to have like a whole team with him or what?
yeah.
Oh, just a team of angry men who are angry about different things.
The way they showed gameplay, it does feel like it could be a very single player thing, or like you could at least have a couple of backup people with you.
I mean, if it's Team Ninja, it's hard to imagine it being a, turn-based combat kind of deal.
And Final Fantasy has been moving a lot more towards that whole active time battle. Like the God, there was a development history on that where they talked about the nature of by Final Fantasy IV when they moved into the active time battle thing to be like, no, what we want you to do is we want you to pay attention to what's going on and pick the right times to attack. Oh, that's what it was. Christine Love was talking about how her take on Get in the Car Losers combat system is heavily inspired by Final Fantasy 13's, where it's like what you want to do is you want to be able to attack at the right times so that you can overwhelm an opponent and you can get your stagger meter up so you can actually stagger the opponent and get extra attacks in. And it's like that's a development thing that Final Fantasy has been doing since Final Fantasy IV, where they've been building to these kind of this kind of attack system. And it's always constantly like you're tweaking a knob, you're turning one thing, you're moving another thing to be like, how do we make this a well-balanced system?
I like that you say they're tweaking, because it's like every time I've seen a new Final Fantasy game, to me it just looks like they went, well, time to start over.
Yeah, it's like a huge overhaul, and it's like, well, in a way, it kind of is, but it also
they're going to be
isn't.
elements
It's-
that
yeah.
are, but visually they always seem to go for that.
I mean,
that really
yeah,
overhaul thing.
Up until like Final Fantasy 12, well, Final Fantasy 10, I guess, was the last one with like the traditional active time battle system, which I quite liked. And Final Fantasy 12 basically had active time battle, but they kind of disguised it. And then they sort of have switched into different things now. But yeah, Final Fantasy 12 took a while for me. Once I actually figured out what they were doing, in the sense that it's not actually a real-time battle thing. It's actually like a turn-based combat, but just with more animation between turn-based turns. And allows you to run around, but you're still actually just in a turn-based combat system. Once I figured that out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I can play this.
Yeah. I remember another tangent here. I remember Child of Light, which is by Ubisoft. The people who wouldn't stand up for sexual harassers or people getting sexually harassed in their own company. Let's not forget that. Child of Light, though, its system was like there's a timeline at the top of the thing, and if you attacked at the right time, you could interrupt the enemy's attacks.
Yeah, it has points on it that shows like when people are gonna attack and what order they're going in, and they're kind of following this thing. And so you only have so much time to
you have only so much time
back.
to put your thing in. But when you actually say I want to attack now, it's like, well, that means you're attacking now on the timeline, and that'll give whomever else time to actually attack you later. So if you can actually wait a little bit and get to a certain point, you can attack them. That'll stagger them past their own line on the timeline, and they'll have missed their chance to attack. And then the same thing happens to you because somebody can attack you, an enemy can attack you, and then it's like, oh, I missed my chance to attack you.
Yeah, it's an interesting system.
Sort of a visual depiction of stun lock.
Yeah, which is real frustrating because you can see it coming. You're like, oh shit, and yeah.
But yeah, we could probably talk about different systems of fighting in our JRPGs all day. Maybe we should move on to the next story though.
Yeah. Move on to the next story. Well, if you're going to play a JRPG, you're going to need a good graphics card. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's tough to get a new good graphics card because the chips for making them are severely constrained. And so, yeah, MSI has brought out is remaking the GT 730.
Which was not even the best card of that era.
I actually looked it up. The first loading ready run gaming PC had a GT 760 in it. Which that was Moonbase Mark II, I think.
Oh wow!
Or no, Mark III. No, that would have been Moonbase Mark III.
Because that's when we would have been gaming to stream, right?
Yeah.
In Mark III, yeah.
Yeah. If you need something to power your monitors, because you've got a AMD, because you've got like an AMD Ryzen or a
the Intel F series chips that don't have onboard.
Yeah, if you don't have onboard graphics, you need something to power your monitors. This thing will do great.
Yeah.
It's got, and probably the original GT 730s didn't have like the same like display port and stuff, which this one does. This one has the display port, HDMI, and I think also VGA still.
It does have a D-sub, yeah.
This originally came out in 2014?
2014!
Right, so if you haven't upgraded your computer since 2012, now might be a good time to do so.
I mean, you might want to find a better card than this, though, because there's cards in 2012 that even perform this thing, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's like about, what, $50?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing.
45,000
the expectation is in Japan it's going to come out for 4,500 yen roughly, which is going to be about, let's just say $45 US because it fluctuates. But if you were to go online in the US and look for it, you can find one of these cards on eBay, not a brand new one, a used one, for $100. You can find
one of these cards or one of the original.
One of the original ones is $100. There is an expectation that if these make it to the US, they will probably come out at $79 US. That's according to, I think, Tom's Hardware was like...
That is not actually very cheap.
No. Seeing as how I was talking about the RTX 3060, because that's what's mentioned in the Game Informer article. They talk about the RTX 3060, not the 3080 or the 3090. And they're saying that card is about $429 retail if you could get it at that price, which means that the GT 730 is one quarter the price, but it's 1/10 the performance.
Yeah.
So the reason why you have this is because you're building a rig and you're waiting for the card you want, so you buy this card so you have a card to use in the meantime.
Yeah, like in the graph that we showed on screen for this is a measurement of like price performance ratio.
Yeah.
And on that graph, like, so 3D Mark for this thing, $299. If you know anything about that 3D Mark, that's not very good.
Yeah.
In comparison, top of the line, GTX 3090, $19,970. So we're talking like orders of magnitude, like 2 orders of magnitude difference.
But what's the step up?
If you just
if I looked at that graph, I think the step up was still a lot more.
Well, the funny thing is, this graph, the next, like, this graph is not designed to go this low. Like, the things that it's comparing it against on this graph is like the 2070 Super, because and so the next thing up is still 10,000 3D Mark.
Yeah,
Because
it's taking
they don't see any, when they are building this thing, they're not going to load up the graph with 10-year-old graphics cards.
No, I
Yeah.
meant from like,
So
it's because it's from stuff from today, right?
yeah.
So you have all of these cards that's like, here's the top 5, and then here's where this one fits against the top 5, and it's like, oh, it's not. It's like, yeah, that's right. It's incredibly old. What's funny is seeing the popularity graph, because it's like popularity was dropping, and all of a sudden it's bounced back up again. It's like, I imagine that's but they haven't even released these yet, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, it's such an illustration of what how fucked the industry is right now, that MSI is releasing a card that is currently being end of lifed just because they see a hole in the market where they're like, it actually makes better sense for us to manufacture these, put them to retail, and sell them, because there is a dearth of any other component. And maybe it is, we have these components, this is a card we can make, so let's just make it and get it out there, because people should be able to buy it at that point.
I was just gonna say, there's the MSRP of the GT 1030. So the which is, we're at the 30 generation now. So this is 2 generations old. Is $79. That's the MSRP of the GT 1030, which according to the benchmarks and stuff is approximately 3 times faster than this thing.
And it's only like, it's twice the price.
No, it's
maybe only
$79. So if we're talking if you're talking that's the price, then yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this is not a good deal. But then again, sometimes you need something to make stuff appear on the screen of your computer. And
it can do 4K, and it can drive 3 monitors at once.
Yeah, as long as 4K at 30 hertz is probably not what you want.
Nope.
But driving 3 monitors is probably fine.
Yeah. This could just be an OEM card, too. It could just be like, we need something to fit in the market because we need to sell to OEMs for display systems or for something else. And it's like, we can make you these.
If you have any kind of built-in, Intel graphics or whatever the AMD equivalent is, you probably want to be using that instead.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got going on here.
We had the coming up.
That's right.
Nintendo won't tell us the subtitle to Breath of the Wild 2 because...
Well, they won't even say it like it's the sequel to Breath of the Wild, right?
Yes.
Breath of the Wild 2 is something everyone's calling it, but Nintendo never called it that.
I figured out what it's going to be, though. I did. I thought about it for a while. I was up late last night watching Constantine, and I'd never seen it before. And so I was like...
Wait, really?
But I'd never seen Constantine before. It's quite the thing. And so I thought about it, and just before I went to bed, I was like, oh, shit, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild 2, Phantom Hourglass 0. Because Nintendo doesn't give a fuck about timelines!
Okay, cool.
New Legend of Zelda.
Oh, yes! That's even better!
So I've seen people get really mad about this and say things like they don't actually know what the subtitle is. And I think really it's more just their marketing curve right now, because the game has been placed as aiming for 2022. They don't want to give that information away. Maybe they haven't fully settled on a title. That's also a possibility. But even if they have, I think they, like, in their marketing curve of stuff, they would rather give that title away closer to when it's actually announced properly for release with a date, so that people can be really excited about this new piece of information that they've been given. Because the thing that they showed feels like right now what we want to show you is the fact that, yes, we're going to do some stuff with skies and floating islands.
Yeah.
And that's all we really want to... It's all we really want to give away right now.
I think it could be a legitimate thing that the name will spoil something about
Yeah.
something that they don't want to reveal quite yet, too, right?
Or start speculation on even.
Well, I
Right.
mean, if you look at some of the naming schemes for some of their other games, where it's like Ocarina of Time, there's that gives away a big gameplay mechanic.
Right. Or the
Majora's Mask,
two worlds.
or Two Worlds,
Oh, shit.
things
Imagine
like that. And so,
Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, Majora's Mask 2.
Yeah. I did think about that last night. I was like, was it Majora's Mask 2? That would be really good. But I'm like, no, I'll go with Phantom Hourglass 0 because that doesn't make any sense. It's perfect.
man, no, don't make me want things.
The Minish Cap, yeah.
Mask 2?
Of course, the problem thing with that is we didn't know what a Minish was, so it
Exactly.
didn't really spoil anything.
We also didn't know what Majora was or why Majora had a mask. You know, like
No, but that's the idea of like this will ramp up speculation, and maybe they don't want to give us the subtitle until they can actually explain what that bit is.
All right, other stuff. Microsoft has talked about using that they're going to be Microsoft has done a bunch of cloud streaming stuff. It's sort of been kind of below the radar, but it's something that they've been working on, and it is available in certain circumstances. And what's I find kind of interesting is, of course, there's a couple of games already on Switch that use cloud gaming in order to
be playable.
Guardians of the Galaxy is actually going to be one of them too.
Higher quality performance, and so Microsoft has talked about that they're going to actually start using that they might actually start using cloud gaming stuff in order to continue to have games available on the Xbox One, which is kind of a neat idea. That basically your console, like there was always this thing about like on Live or different things, they would sell you like the little micro console.
Yeah.
Or like a Steam box, or these little micro console things that were just enough to connect up to the internet to pull down the stuff, and that's all you would need. So I kind of like this idea that like your Xbox One could kind of, as it becomes less useful as a gaming device and kind of gets end of lifed, it has a new life as this like streaming box, as like a macro console.
And it's a little weird to think about this box that is actually quite big basically not being able to be powerful enough to do a modern game. So it's like, well, you're gonna have to cloud stream it instead. It's odd to me because we do associate the size of something with the relative power that's inside of it.
Sort of.
Yeah.
In computers, it doesn't usually work that way. Like a really big computer is not necessarily going to be that fast.
No, exactly. And when you think about how big computers had to be, even like tower machines and stuff, like how big you had to have like a tower under your desk.
Computer is the size of a room.
Yeah, but even that, even like a computer you could have in your house that was like in a big tower, it's like, you can actually get all of that in a small form factor device, and it's just as powerful. It's like, right, yes, right. So why are they this big when they have to sit under our TV? And it's like, I don't know all the time why they have to be that big.
But speaking of people end of lifing things, Rockstar is shutting down GTA Online for PS3 and Xbox 360. So,
but it will still run for other platforms.
Yeah. The Xbox Online.
This is just older.
But they're just shutting down their older stuff. The problem, though, is that due to how GTA Online works, you can't actually, nothing transfers.
Oh, shit.
So,
wait, really?
Anything you bought for your PS3 thing doesn't transfer over
to like your PS4 or your PS5 or whatever.
That means that anyone who's been playing GTA Online on their PS3 this entire time was like, they might have had a PS4, but like their PS3 still hooked up so they can go play GTA Online whenever they want to. They might have a PS4 for their games, but they're like, I still gotta haul this shit out and play this all the time. Oh, that sucks. That sucks.
Yeah. I do like so they will not be able to transfer their character experience to recent versions of GTA Online before the shutdown because I just I like the fact is like you will not be able to transfer your progress because that's not a feature that exists.
Yeah.
Because
Usually that's the
we
thing.
never made it.
That's the thing of like, okay, we never put in that feature because we really didn't think we'd need it, and then we saw a lot of people play this thing, but we needed to get rid of this thing, so we added it just in time, and you have like until here and to do whatever is supposed to be the spoonful of sugar that makes the medicine go down, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so to hear it be like, no, just nope,
Yep, can't do
is
it.
really actually quite weird.
Yeah. Fascinating though.
Yeah, and I don't know why they felt the need to tell people this, but the reason that they're doing it is because they're moving support off that, so they have more people for doing the new console things, which I mean, it's fairly obvious.
Yeah. They could, and I mean, they could just let the people continue to play and be like, we're not updating this client anymore. We're not doing anything else for it. You can continue to play if you want, but anything that new that shows up in the game will not be implemented for you. It's like, well, you don't want people to have a bad experience either. So
yeah. I'm not
I don't think it's that
entirely
simple.
clear what like whether GTA Online, like the different consoles and different versions of it are sort of siloed from each other. I guess they must be if this. So like a person on PS3 can't play with a person on PS4. I guess I thought it was sort of a persistent world, but maybe you're not in the same world. I don't know. Oh yeah, we didn't mention during part of the Metroid Dread thing is that they're doing the amiibo. I mean, we've talked extensively about amiibos as power ups or whatever, but there's going to be one amiibo allows you to get an extra E-tank, and another one allows you to get extra missile, like 5 more missiles or whatever.
Yeah, and once a day they will either give you energy back and or they will give you some extra missiles once per day. And it's like, I saw people in the Polygon comments being like, this is the kind of thing I expect out of amiibos, though, is to be like, because some people were complaining, it's like, oh, it's one of those things where I have to buy the expansion to do whatever, and it's like, but you don't. I mean, you're not going to get that extra E-tank, you're not going to get that extra whatever, and it's not necessary to have those to play the game, or probably even to 100% the game. It's just you get a thing. Not. And I think that's where people draw their they're like, I'm happiest with this being a representation of DLC.
It's not like to get the morph ball, you scan the amiibo.
Right? Holy shit.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of generally where the level of amiibo usage hits, because it's not then tied to being a physical object for a DLC that might be story based or something else, but it does then at least do something, which is the point of them.
We were talking earlier about Metroidvania games and Castlevania. There is a newish version of so there's one of the Castlevania games, Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which is one of the sillier names, is a very well thought of Castlevania game. It's right up there with like Symphony of the Night in terms of people really think it's great. It was released as Castlevania Dracula X for Super Nintendo, and apparently it was a really, really crappy port because it originally came out on Turbo
PC
Duo.
Engine CD, yeah.
Well, it originally came out on Turbo Duo in Japan.
Right, which is the PC Engine CD.
Which was,
that's the same thing.
But the problem is the PC Engine CD didn't do well at all in North America.
No.
And so that version of it never came to North America. And so they got the Super Nintendo version, which apparently was butt. And now it was an unlockable extra in Dracula X Chronicles. And it has been available with through virtual consoles and things.
Yeah.
But if you had a PC Engine CD or a Turbo Duo, you could not get that game. Well, I guess if you had a PC Engine CD, you weren't able to get it because it was never released in North America until now. That's right. All you people with PC Engine CDs, the console that we just talked about did not sell very well at all.
Yeah.
Can now get your copy of the original Castlevania Rondo of Blood from Limited Run Games.
Translated to English, available in physical form, fits in your Turbo Duo just fine. Holy shit, I don't know why. I don't know why they bothered.
Because it's Limited Run Games.
Because it's Limited Run Games.
Occasionally they do this kind of thing.
I played a bit of Rondo of Blood emulation style, and I was like, it's fine. I didn't play a lot of it because it is...
It's the direct prequel to Symphony of the Night, apparently.
Yeah, but it's not a Symphony of the Night alike. It's not a Metroidvania style Castlevania, right? It is a traditional Castlevania style Castlevania.
The more action style.
Yeah, where it's not exploration based. It is linear progression through the whole game. It's like, as far as I could tell, anyway. I didn't get very far because I was like, I'm not into this. But
SC Jewers in the chat has a duo. I'm so excited.
I mean, SC Jewers, since you actually have a duo, I think you're saying you're considering this. You actually kind of have to buy it. I think
your
you're the only person.
If you don't, who will?
Yeah.
Limited Run Games generally only sells their stuff for a limited time. It's part of their marketing. It's part of their title.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't want to advocate anyone have to get a thing, but if you're considering it, you have a limited time.
Like how if we're talking about like most anticipated things of E3 or whatever, how often do new games come out for your
right?
Turbo Duo?
And frankly, I'm like, we have the opposite problem at Loading Ready Run, because the way we are is because we're the only stewards left in the world of Penn and Teller Smoke and Mirrors. We have to buy a Sega CD every time it's available. Like, that's just what we have to do now. As every time there's a new Sega CD that comes out, we have to get it.
That hasn't happened very often.
No, it hasn't. There is that one that emulated system that's new that just came out that can actually do it. But I mean, the JVC XI we're using right now has been pretty good. So I think we currently have 5 or 6. We've had 5 or 6 Sega CD and Sega CD-alike systems over the years. We've had some fail. So
I'm going to point out the analog duo that got posted in chat. So if you don't have an original, you can still
there you go,
buy that and then buy this other game, I guess, if you really want to.
Is it just TurboGrafx 16s that works with
the XI? Yeah, the XI is a pretty amazing system, actually.
Super graphics.
That's one. The XI we've been using for the last 5 years or so, I think, because it's way better than a Sega CD.
Yeah, do not send us Sega CDs. God damn it.
Please
do
don't.
not. Do not send us Sega CDs.
If you have an XI that you don't want, that might be interesting, but they're kind of hard to find.
We have either 1 or 2 of them, I think. I want a Victor Wonder Mega, which is basically just the JVC XI, but it has a cooler case.
Oh.
That's no point.
Sonic Fox.
Yeah.
The super cool fighting game, was it 5-time Evo champion? And he won like Gamer of the Year a couple years ago. I remember we were doing like a B stream of a thing.
Esports or
something like
something.
That. Anyway,
streamer.
From all, I have no contact with the person, but from all appearances, appears to be a super cool guy. And also is famously a furry, and goes, wears a full sort of blue fox outfit most of the time. And now there's a plush. You can get a plush of it, of probably one of the only people in the fighting game community that has a plush of themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like a plush of most of the people in the fighting game community would not be that interesting. It would just be like a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they make plushies of like characters who are human being looking. I've seen them.
True.
They're okay. It's anime gets a lot of that, but a blue fox is generally pretty cute.
Yeah. And what I love about the Sonic Fox plush is that it's strictly it's an animal. It's four-legged with the whole thing. It's not Sonic Fox in their fursuit.
It's not a bipedal animal. It's what you would expect out of a fox.
It's kind of cool.
The like fox, and then you open it up, and their face is right in there. Would actually.
Oh, that would be interesting.
That would be interesting. That does not look like that's designed that way.
No.
If it was like a transformer that could actually like stand up and go from like 4 legs to 2 legs, and it's like that's a little disturbing itself. But yeah,
it's very cute.
It is very cute.
What else we got going on here? Oh yeah,
I think that. Go ahead.
Sorry? Well, in there's gonna be update to Hyrule Warriors, where you can be one of the Breath of the Wild's guardians, which just has like a giant laser that just.
Yep, I believe it came out today.
Why?
Oh, nice.
Why are we doing things with swords and things? Why don't we just do that? That seems better.
So here's the thing about this expansion pass, Paul. This expansion pass has been available for months on pre-order, and they gave out like a pre-order bonus of in May of like this ancient armor suit thing, and this is the first half of the expansion pass, which they did not give us any details about until E3 happened, and this expansion pass landed today.
People were just waiting to be like, what did I just pay 6 months ago for?
Yeah, a lot of people were like, I'm not giving you money until I actually know what's in it, because it's like there's some details that were like, oh, they'll be like new playable characters and
pre-order
what,
DLC
but nothing.
Thing.
Yeah. That aside, I'm still excited to play as a giant guardian, as opposed to spoilers if you haven't played the game right now, the tiny guardian character you can play at the end, which is also just weird but fun.
I like too that it is specifically a battle tested guardian, so it's got like axes and arrows and things like all sticking into it.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. They also showed this what looks like 2 guardian legs kind of on the ends of ropes, kind of like some nunchucks.
Yes.
That Link gets. Zelda's getting the bike as a weapon.
Yeah.
So
the Master Cycle.
Yeah. I really liked playing the spinner in the first Hyrule Warriors game as a weapon.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of excited to see what they do with the bike. And I hope it's nothing like the horse.
Just gonna do like some cool like endos and stuff, and like some do some high sides. What do they call anyway?
Mm-hmm. It's funny because
let's
essentially
all wait while
your
Beej comes up with lingo for
yes.
It's essentially this is your new character, and a lot of people were waiting for Robbie and what's her face to be the characters because they're kind of prominent in the game,
right? And
they keep showing them in the artwork very prominently for the expansion pass. So people were like, "Well, those must be the new characters we're gonna get." And said our new character is a giant robot with like legs and lasers, and looks like it's been beat to heck.
Yeah. I mean, well, and this is only the first part of the expansion pass.
Oh,
there's more coming.
I'm
Maybe
sure
Robbie and Perez show up then, but yeah.
It probably is. But that was the expectation.
Yeah.
Finally, I think the last little bit of news here. We've already even today dumped a bit on Cyberpunk 2027 or 2077. But good for them. They are apparently going to be allowed back into the PlayStation Store June 21st.
Yeah.
So if you recall, they got delisted from the PlayStation Store because so many people were asking for refunds, and Sony didn't want to deal with that. And I guess it's got to they have put out enough updates, enough patches and things that Sony feels that it's acceptable now. Mm-hmm. So good for them.
Yeah, let's not forget they told people that they could go get refunds if they were unhappy with the game.
Right, and
places got flooded, probably not even knowing that was a thing. And I think Sony's stuff says that if it's not a thing, and if the thing is so broken that it needs to issue refunds, it can't be in the store. Was I think the stance that happened?
In a statement to Polygon, Sony confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 will return to the PlayStation Store. it also cautioned users against playing the game on a base PlayStation 4 until CD Projekt Red fixes more issues. I don't know if the PlayStation Store has the ability to like only not sell a thing to somebody who's got the wrong console. Hopefully it does.
I mean, probably, but it would be at that point it would be that there would only be a PS5 version.
Well, there's PS4 Pro.
Not...
Yeah.
There's the Pro model of the
PS4.
In
that sense,
they might not make differentiation.
Probably they might not.
Yeah.
There was a story in here. I mean, there's the new Zelda Game & Watch, which is like, that's super cool. That's when the Mario one came out. I'm like, can't wait for the Zelda one. So I'm glad to see that's coming out. But there was a story you posted here, which I was trying to find an angle on for CheckPoint. Couldn't find an angle, but I did think it was interesting, was My Summer Vacation. That it's that's a game by the people who made Attack of the Friday Monsters, which is level 5.
Yes.
But what I played it. But we couldn't understand. We knew of this. We both had heard of it. I think we'd even talked to each other about it. Heather talked to me, I think, first about it. And we're like, cool. What presentation was it in? When did we? What? How did you see that? Why did we talk about it? I think it's just a
random trailer I saw on Reddit or something.
Yeah, but it's a neat idea because it's kind of it's a super chill game. Might have even come during Wholesome Direct or something. That might have been why it got spread.
The whole reason that the story about My Summer Vacation is getting an English translation came up is because there's a tweet from one of the makers who said, by the way, I'm working on a translation.
Ah, okay.
So this wouldn't have been in any direct.
Right. But this is part of a series of games that Level 5 did with a bunch of different creators. They're they're not micro games, but they're just smaller games. Like Attack of the Friday Monsters was a smaller game.
They're part of a compilation, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the 3DS, you had to buy all these games separately. Like Weapon Shop de Amase was a separate purchase. Like you didn't just buy a compilation of it, but they were all part of a compilation in terms of like a series. Kind of like how, well, anyway, like simple series. But My Summer Vacation was a game that originally came out in 2000 on the PS1 and got a remake in 2006 on the PSP. Like, this is a very old game, and they're just now translating it.
Nobody bothered to translate it until now.
I guess
it's like a fan translation too, isn't it?
I'm not sure because nobody knows where it's coming out. Is the thing? They're like, it's what system is coming to. Nobody knows.
Yeah, like I think Nintendo Life picked up the story because like the other two games that Beach mentioned came out on the 3DS over here as digital downloads, and so the suggestion that this is getting a translation into English. And that the person who's doing that translation's like, I want people to be able to play this in English, is that it might come out on the Switch then. And I mean, Level 5 does do a lot of stuff with the Nintendo sphere of gaming.
Yeah. But it's just like an interesting idea. And as the way that the thing about the game is that it's literally you're on a summer vacation, August 1975. So like the Showa era in Japan, you're on summer vacation at your grandmother's house. You run around and fly a kite and catch bugs and just have little adventures.
Yeah.
And there's nothing about it that's like world changing.
Really
apparently.
Fits in with like the other two games. The Weapon Shop one is you run a weapon shop and people just come into the shop. And there's like a radio feed of people who cheer and stuff. That one didn't really gel with me. Attack of Friday Monsters is you're like a kid in a small Japanese town, and you're all playing this card game that's just a very simple card game, and it seems like kaiju might exist, but it kind of seems like that kind of thing of kids imagining kaiju, but then kaiju actually pop up. Like, the game's only a couple hours long, so it's not that it's a very short playthrough, but all you're doing as a kid is just playing these things and trying to figure out if kaiju are real.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought it was a really interesting post to put in, especially because we were like confused as to why it even came up and why people were paying attention to it. But it's kind of neat. Anyway.
All right, let's thank all you awesome people for what. Actually, let's first talk about what's coming up, because what's coming up is Friday Night Paper Fight. We're going to be playing Gladiator. It's going to be Cameron and Ben Wheeler, and Nelson and Serge are going to be getting their gladiator on. And then on Saturday, it's Loading Bay Live.
All right.
Something's going to happen.
Been a month.
Well,
Yeah,
sort
I
of.
can't believe
this is
that.
a little
Yeah.
early on the. I think we're. This is just how the weeks
Yeah. How the weeks turn out. Yeah.
turn out. This one is like slightly less than a month from the last one. And then more Beach Trail at Krondor.
Yeah. We just finished chapter 7. We started and finished chapter 7 last night.
Oh wow, the chapters are really going fast now, eh?
They're a lot faster. This last chapter was essentially you're confined to only one area of the game, and you have one thing you need to do. And because I have a walkthrough, it's like you go here, do this, go here, talk to this guy, talk to this guy, talk to this guy, talk to this guy, go find a thing, talk to this guy, go get these boxes because there's some cool shit in them, and then go do the thing you have to do. And it's like it was super fast.
Yeah, Death Stranding did that too. Like at the end, there was like new chapter, cutscene, next chapter. Like, there wasn't even any gameplay. It was like, oh, okay.
I did find a chest in the game that when you use the chest on the main field, it's just a wooden chest with 24 charges. When you use the chest, you fly up in the air, and then you come back down again, and it's just like boing. You just go straight up. You can't move. You just go straight up in the air, and you come straight back down. There's no tactical reason for this thing to exist.
The spring chest?
It's all it does is just do that, and you can use it 24 times. Only in that chapter.
Playing Beatrice.
Well, that's what that looks like. Well, I didn't pick this game. It's Ian's turn.
All right.
I don't even know what this game is about.
It's like Beatrice or something.
Beatrice and Benedict. And wait, is it Tetris but to the beat?
Maybe.
That sounds good.
I don't know.
And then Wheeler's going to be playing some Yu-Gi-Oh!
Nice.
And then on Monday, Can't Draw Horses Club with Corey and guest. Followed by Dice Friends.
All right.
A deep and creeping darkness. Well, that can't be good. Is the next if you didn't see the last episode, we actually have extended our Candlekeep series. It was originally going to be 5 sessions, but is now going to be 9 sessions. So
yeah, I mean, insider secret, in the original planning stages, we were hoping for 8, couldn't get enough people to commit, went down to 5, and now we're going to 9. So getting even better.
Yeah, once people started actually playing it, they got super into it. And then on Tuesday, we've got a very special stream. We have a bonus stream on Tuesday of Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, the new Dungeons & Dragons thing, which you may have actually seen the thing during E3. Myself...
This is a sponsored event.
Yeah, sponsored event. Myself and Graham and...
Is it Adam and Ben?
I feel like Ben's definitely in on this.
Graham and you and Ben and Adam, I believe, is what the lineup is.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that should be super neat. I'm going to have to try it out a little bit before the actual stream. Talking Simulator is going to be later in the evening.
It's a different game.
Not playing Control.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Did they finish?
I don't know. Well, they're done for now, at least.
And then more Played Forward.
Yeah, Chapter 8 was really short. This will probably be Chapter...
I mean, maybe. This game has 9 chapters for those of you who are trying to figure out length. And Beach has definitely... What was it? You mentioned starting Chapter 6 a couple sessions ago, and you're like, this is going to take 2 weeks. And I was like, and then 2 sessions later, you're like, Chapter 6 is done.
Yeah, well, 3 sessions we had to do ultimately, but anyway, that's good.
Now, let's thank some awesome people who subscribed during the stream. People like Magical Attack Gecko,
Oh, nice.
for 90 months. Very nice.
Fuzzy died. Oh no.
Oh, Detritus Rex returns for the second month. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you.
My God, you made it.
MC40K, that 60-month 5-year anniversary.
Surf down stage. Always surf down the stage if you're going to surf on the stage for 25 months. Welcome back.
No. Surf down, not upstage.
Yeah.
We got 10 subs from Grevas13. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Metalupus for 90 months. That is as much as 9 tens. That's
Yep.
amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And 300 bits from Pharaohbender. Thank you very much. And also Gap Filler.
Gap filler.
Sneaking in there.
Fill in the gap.
Thanks everybody for watching. And
you can back us on YouTube memberships on the main channel. You go join on youtube.com/loadingreadyrun. You can also back us on Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun and check out the store.loadingreadyrun.com. The Blu-rays and DVDs are good. That does work. The Blu-rays and DVDs for season 11 are now up for sale. You can buy them now.
Ooh. Even if we didn't pre-order.
Correct. They are now available for purchase. You can also buy the Agatha Christie playmat, which is brand new. Pride shirts will be coming back into stock, I think, later this week, and so will the RoadQuest water bottles because they have arrived. They just haven't been received yet.
Two notes. We have set aside stock for people who still haven't gotten back to us about the Blu-rays and DVDs if they've pre-ordered. So if you haven't, do.
Yeah, please contact the store if you think that you're
we are
owed one.
probably never making any more, so if you want it, buy it now.
Yeah.
Also, the EU has the same issues as the UK, and we won't be able to sell to the EU once we hit July 1st. So if you are in the EU and you want to get your buying on now, get it on now.
Yeah.
To be clear, that isn't like a permanent thing.
No.
That we won't be able to sell there ever, but there's additional regulatory issues that are causing a lot of stuff.
Yes,
so we're going to have to
It's a tax regulation issue that hit the UK first, was always going to hit the EU. And one day when one gets sorted out, they'll probably both get sorted out.
Yeah, that is my intention. Once I sort out some stuff with the store that I have to sort out already, we can work on the UK and the EU.
And
issues.
we will dance in the streets about it. So you'll know when it happens.
I'm going out for dinner on the company's dime.
Oh, can I come?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.